And a lot of men are too fragile, too weak to manage their own egos because they've been crushed the moment they were introduced to the world. And they haven't adapted or ever learned that they were operating from a place of ego rather than a place of the soul.
What I see is that you're a person who is so grounded in your masculinity that there's nothing wrong with you to be in touch with your femininity.
Even though I was raised by a single mother, she taught me that I'm not supposed to show my emotions and gotta be a man. I'm too sensitive. You don't wear your heart on your sleeve. I just felt like my soul was slowly dying, and I started to discover more of myself. And that my ego was who ultimately I thought I was. It was the mind, the things that people told me that I was. It was my environment. It was just a combination of all the stereotypes and labels and definitions I had slapped on myself to fulfill this role, to be able to have all the things, to be deemed worthy. And worthiness was never about having the label or the title. It was about knowing from within. It was about recognizing my soul and unmasking myself and embracing my individuality, which was separate from a gender role altogether. I can't ever understand what love feels like unless I learn how to accept that instead of push it away
Yeah.
and then become resentful that, hey, I don't feel loved in this relationship. When this whole time I've been pushing away all the little bids for connection she's been offering.
Hello, gorgeous, lion-hearted soul, and welcome to Magnetize Your Queen. I'm your host, Anya, a men's somatic intimacy coach. And this is a place where I get to have the realest, rawest, most authentic conversations with mostly male guests about masculinity, desire, primal power, and how the fuck to stop being at war with each other and to start enjoying each other's company. So I invite you to put down your sword for a moment and let's have some fun.
Welcome, everyone, to Magnetize Your Queen. I'm so happy to be here with you today with a really dear friend of mine, Nicholas. I'm so happy to have you here with me on the couch. Nicholas is a videographer, an artist, and a tarot leader. And you are just one of the most beautiful men I know. And you are also so deeply grounded. And these are the types of guests that I really wanted to have on my podcast, especially in the times when spiritual bypassing has become the norm. I really wanted to have the kind of people on my couch to talk to who do their inner healing work and don't bypass the very human experiences of just the shit that we're swimming in every day.
Yeah.
And who have the courage to look at it and address it instead of walking around being like, love and light, I'm going to ignore all that shit.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I mean, again, when I walked into your home, it felt like nirvana, this total peace. And I mean, I always appreciate you for being so kind and complimentary, and you're so sweet. I mean, thank you, Anya.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really received that. Thank you, friend. And here's a little interesting fact about me and Nicholas is that we have opposite birthdays.
That's
And when yeah.
right.
And when I heard that, I was like, what? I'm going to get esoteric for a moment. I know you're at the same level of esotericism as me. I've told y'all before that if you prefer more esoteric stuff on this podcast, I can turn it up to 11 out of 10. So I'm not going to go
11 out of 10. Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah.
Well, because we're both born on the 11th.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so I'm born June 11th and Nicholas
December 11th. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think esoterically speaking, I feel the kind of kindred connection with you, like our souls came here to do some work together and to connect. And so we used to work in the same grocery store. It was an interesting phase of our lives, both I think for
Yes.
you and for me.
It was, to say the least.
Yeah.
Working there was definitely a hassle. Felt
Yeah.
like we were climbing up a mountain, trying to like escape the matrix, and all of a sudden, like a bunch of shit happens, and now we're in a different timeline. You know, like
Yeah.
a completely different timeline.
Yeah. And the popping and crackling you're hearing is a fire. Nicholas brought some firewood. So now we're having ourselves a fire right there where he's sitting. So we have some warmth going on. And wind chimes outside. There's some northern wind blowing in cold air, and we're having a fire.
Oh, you have bats decorating your porch.
Oh, speaking of the death card, that had a bat on it.
Oh,
So I
really?
have some bats staring
A
at
little
me, being like,
synchronicity.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel that.
I have bats hanging on my porch left over from Halloween, and both me and my daughter, we love bats so much. So they're looking at me from through the window right now and being like, "Bitch, what shedding haven't you done yet? Like, you gotta let it die."
I mean, thinking about bats are so misunderstood.
Yeah.
I mean, they get demonized just for like moving around in the dark and squeaking in the night. And then like I see these TikTok videos of fruit bats just like eating a banana.
And they're so cute.
Right. I was like, how could anyone say this thing's a demon?
Yeah, with like their tiny little hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just trying to live and enjoy life.
Yeah. I love bats. I love bats. Yeah, so every time you would walk into the store, because I usually started earlier in the morning and then you would come in the afternoon. And it's funny because every time you would walk into the store, I would feel you before I would see you. So I really do feel like there's some kind of a soul connection.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah,
feel
so
that.
I'm really happy to have this conversation with you, and I want to discuss so many topics with you, and I'm like, where do I even start?
Yeah.
And this podcast is meant to be all about how can we build a bridge between the feminine and the masculine. And I know that this is a topic you feel really passionately about, is that right now we're having a war. And, you know, I sat in on an ayahuasca ceremony. Again, I do not condone psychedelics. It's a personal choice for everyone.
Yeah.
But my family, all of my family are in Ukraine. And I have family members on the front line. My brother is in the military. And so the war that's happening in Ukraine is very close to me. And something that I have noticed is that among Americans, but not just Americans, just people in general, it almost feels like people have gotten so exhausted from hearing about how horrible it was there that there's like a part of people's psyche that's like, are they even still alive? Like, hasn't it been wiped out yet? And then there's another part that's like, well, if we're not hearing about it being really bad, then maybe everything is good, and it's neither. So I can't bypass into like, oh, my thoughts create my reality. And if I think happy thoughts, all the wars will go away.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. And, the earthly living experience is a co-creative experience.
Right.
And my family is living through it. So I can't go into a bypass and be like, if I pretend that it doesn't exist, it won't exist.
Right.
So again, the war in Ukraine has just been very present in my psyche, very present in my energetic field, even though I'm trying not to live it because I'm not there. So as I sat in on the ayahuasca ceremony, what was so interesting for me is that I was really shown that every external war that's happening on our planet right now is a manifestation of the war between the feminine and the masculine. And more specifically, it is us warring against our mothers. There is something about these dictators that is really making them rage against the feminine energy. It's like it's that little boy who got so hurt by his mother, who got so neglected. And I mean, if you look at their histories too, and I mean, some of them come from very rich families, some of them come from orphanages, but there's that neglect, that there's that childhood neglect that's a thread throughout all of it. And it's it's like they're raging against how deeply hurt they feel by the feminine energy,
Yeah.
and they have no way of connecting to it and expressing it because they are so hated.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say in this instance, like, oh, if we just love on them, everything's gonna, like, we need to be self-accountable. And
Yeah.
these dictators who are raging wars and destroying our planet and killing people,
They just got mommy issues. Yeah.
but that was like so prominent to me. Like the grandmother medicine was just really showing me how, as long as we keep pointing fingers at each other and as long as we keep raging against each other on these very subtle levels, our wars will continue.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to war, and I'm not carrying on all the like global affairs happening right now. Honestly, I've had to like filter some of that through like my feed because I think it affects like my mental health so negatively that it keeps me out of a mindset of abundance.
Yeah.
It keeps me out of a mindset of being able to get out of my bed and go about my day to day and become another statistic,
Yeah.
just of like a homeless person on the street that gets forgotten about. And,
Mhm.
it's really hard to walk that fine line. But yes, we also can't be like ignorance is bliss and, just be like, oh, hoping that everything happens, if the stars align, everything's going to work out. I mean, like, there's like truth and manifestation when it comes to the self, when it comes to like achieving your own goals. But when it comes to all out war, it gets trivial with intertwining religion and resources and territory just to be able to have more control and power. And that in itself is a toxic masculine energy, um, which is also combating like the feminine energy of the desire to be free and to share, to understand, to create community, which I feel like is more of a feminine energy. And yeah, I definitely understand that dynamic that you're talking about. So,
Yeah. And if I may interject for a moment, is that when I talked about me not bypassing the experience of war, I in no way am suggesting that everybody should start following the events because it is not your path. It is my path. So for me to be oblivious to that is, out of alignment with my path. That is my path.
it would be disingenuous of me to, have this pseudo outrage, of,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, just Russia, they're taking over Ukrainian land and it just like pisses me off. We need to go outside and protest right now. I don't understand what's going. I don't necessarily know the whole story or have all the facts and details and understand the culture
Yeah.
uh, to be frustrated. I mean, or to be as upset or damned um, as you might feel.
Yeah.
So,
And we also live in times where information can be twisted and has been twisted in so many ways. And it's like, it is impossible to know what to believe and what not to believe. And propaganda is very alive in probably every place in the world. Like, I don't know if there's a single place in the world where propaganda is not being used against the people. And, same goes for Ukraine. And I don't mean this in like an attacking way, but there's a certain narrative that needs to exist in a place that is being ravaged by war so that people don't completely lose their hope. So there's a certain narrative that needs to exist in order to unite people. And that narrative oversimplifies things and sometimes ends up turning people against each other even more. So I'm all about turning the TV the fuck off.
yeah, for sure. But it also helps to actually hear from someone that is truly Ukrainian,
Mhm.
not just a cis white gender male that is like a performative male trying to get attention on the internet, or like get more likes and all of that. Like it hits differently whenever you talk to someone that truly is impacted by the situation, not just news carried down by a third party.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get back into the topic of the war between the feminine and the masculine. So when I started by saying that these male leaders are raging against the feminine and they're essentially raging against the experience that they've had with their mothers. So in no way am I trying to turn that conversation into like these little boys need to grow up. Like on the contrary, what I'm trying to lead us towards is that patriarchy has affected women and men equally terribly.
Yeah.
And I talked about this with my first guest, Josh, yesterday, is that I think it's very important not to call it just patriarchy. It's very important to call it the patriarchal colonialist capitalist system.
Right.
There's probably
I was
several
about to say, because
other
I was just about to ask too, like, what is just patriarchy, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it's essentially it's been this system that has been in operation for a very long time, for at least 2000 years, probably a few more thousand years, but
Right.
like on a really big scale, it's been operational for at least 2000 years. And it has benefited only the tiny little sliver of people at the top.
oh yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
everybody else has suffered from it.
Pretty much all wealthy land-owning white males.
Yeah. But when I say this, what I'm trying to say is that I think it's very important to recognize that everybody, with the exception of that sliver of people who have benefited from that system, everybody has suffered in their own ways. Like every person has had their own path to walk, and that suffering has manifested in different ways. And in the context of, well, and I would love to get into this because as I'm saying this, I'm also aware of me saying it as a white person to a black
No.
person. So when I'm saying like everybody has suffered equally, I do understand that
Right.
I'm speaking it from a perspective of a white person. So I want us to table this just for a moment and we'll get back into it if you feel like discussing it. But in the context of feminine and masculine energies, I think that all of us have been fucked over, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. I can agree on that.
Yeah, so we could go on pointing fingers and being like, all men are like this and all women are like this. But the reason why this whole podcast exists is because I want us to build a bridge.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel so passionately about, like, okay, let's have a really candid, really raw, really unfiltered conversation. And when you and I talked on the phone a few days ago, I was like, don't worry about being politically correct. Like, say the most fucking politically incorrect thing. Because, who says what's correct and what's incorrect?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're not going to get canceled. This is my fucking podcast, okay? If you don't like what we're about to say, go elsewhere. Respectfully and with love and compassion.
Or come back if you change your mind.
Yeah. So, yeah, with a very long intro, would you like to speak your feelings about where we are in terms of how the masculine and the feminine relate to each other?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways to start on that, because I mean, we can start on race, like you had like mentioned previously. We can also go into just gender norms in general and talk about how and the different ways this cultural melting pot has kind of forced us to adopt a like Christian lens of how every sort of relationship should work between a man and a woman, dominance versus submissiveness, and how all of that is kind of just like orchestrated to, I don't know, like simulate a relationship, but it's not what real love is about.
I'm smiling because, you talking about dominance and submission. And I had a dominatrix yesterday and we like sat here for 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours talking about dominance and submission. So
Really? Oh my gosh. The fact you can go that deep with it.
I mean, we felt like we could keep going all night.
Yeah.
That was also our first time that we had a conversation without our kids being around. So
Oh,
that was
finally, we got to
fun.
have the juicy details fill
I
out.
know. It's like talking about kink and our kids running around and they're like, "Mommy, she will not let me take her book." And we're like, "Ah, yeah, anyway."
That's awkward.
Yeah. So start where you feel like, just throw it out and see what sticks.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, by no means am I like a professional, like certified in like relationship theory or building or anything. I mean, I've
And I want to say that that's not why I have you here,
right, right.
Like we're not here to be experts and dissect it in these like psychological terms and jargon that nobody
Right,
understands. Like
exactly.
I have you here because you're a real person.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just for context, yeah, I mean, I have looked a lot into like how relationships work, and I have looked a lot into how my own relationship with myself kind of impacts my relationship with others, my own dynamics with my own mother, and how that's like affected not only my masculinity but also my femininity. And um, throughout that relationship, how that's impacted my ability to socialize with others as well. Also raised as an only child, so uh, I mean, I think there are a lot of people that like can relate to those issues, and specifically around like being a black man. I think it's difficult because there's a extra layer of expectation to be like this provider, this non-emotional, stoic, just go after I mean, go out there and do it. Just get the money, come home, and I don't even know what else. You know, you're not really expected to do anything more than that. Um, you're not expected to be present necessarily. No one ever expects. Whenever I guess the conversation comes up, what do you look for in a man? Like it's seldom ever about how you should love them. It's always about how much money they have, or how much like friends they have, or how many like what kind of job they have. It's all kind of like, or how do they look like? It's very like superficial like things that's thrown around, at least in the manosphere. So, and
What is a manosphere?
I, it's kind of like a colloquial term, I would say. It's a way to wash together the definition of a man's thought from the Red Bull community. I would say it's kind of just like a conglomeration of like all of the men's perspectives on dating.
And what's your take on the red pill community? Because I've heard that and I've Googled it and I was like, I don't fully understand it because
Yeah.
I haven't been steeped enough in it. I was following very different type of content, so I was
Right.
oblivious to all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I ever went deep enough into like the Andrew Tate, like sort of like Joe Rogan, like atmosphere to like become infected by the red pill. And I say infected because I don't see women as objects. I don't see them or this interaction we're having as a game, as a way to like manipulate you into like having sex. You know, that's typically what it boils down to with the red pill. Like, you know, women are just there for you to, you know, have sex with, and they're going to either hurt you or you hurt them. You know, it's like a killer be killed almost attitude with that. And I think there's a lot of like um, men out there that like flaunt how many women they have, or like how big their dick is, or how much money they can like spend to, you know, get all of the like pseudo relationships that are around them, because that says something about their worth. And a man's worth is always based off of money, but because money is correlated with having the things you value, like material and women and um, authentic relationships.
Yeah, so that's the part when I Googled it, and that's the part that didn't make any sense to me because In the Matrix, if I remember this correctly, the red pill was the pill that he took to awaken to the truths
Yeah.
of, there was a simulation and they were living on a planet that
Oh.
was operated by robots.
The irony.
Yeah. So it's interesting because Leo takes Neo, not Leo, Neo.
Uh-huh.
He takes the red pill to awaken
Yeah.
from that dream
Yeah.
that's not the reality. So to me, it was like confusing. I'm like, wait, but the red pill, the whole red pill scene is about like men awakening to the idea that women are trying to extract from them. So if they don't want to be extracted from, then they have to extract from women.
Right.
Like that part just didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, wouldn't you want to awaken to a fact that we can only win when all of us win? And if we're ever out to make someone else lose, then all of us fucking lose. Like, isn't there enough evidence in the world right now that when somebody's out to manipulate someone else, everybody loses? Like, look, we're about to destroy our planet,
Well, that's to them choosing to take the blue pill, like, because they've been hurt so much. Like, the possibility of entertaining the idea that there's a good relationship out there is just like living in your imagination. You choose to stay. You don't go into the rabbit hole and you live in this reality. But um, it's a fake woke to take the red pill because it's like you think it's too good to be true because you've been hurt so much. And that's part of where we get into like toxic masculinity. We get into where the wound is, which is, you hit it on the nail on the head already. It's about how we're mothered, how we're parented. It's about the culture that pressures us to act and be perceived a certain way. And unfortunately, men are taught to bottle up their emotions. They're taught to not be empathetic. They have to be tough and, put dirt on it, like just keep moving. Yeah. Like you're meant to be strong and tough and a provider. You can't be that for a woman unless you have money and yada, yada, yada. And a lot of that dynamic has changed in the dating field nowadays. But when it started off, it was very much the expectation, you know, that you have to fit this role in order to see success in your life, or you will be seen as less of a man. So,
Yeah. I really want to hear from you more about this. And we are different generations. So I'm a millennial and you're Gen Z.
right. I should have clarified that.
And we were raised a little differently. And also I grew up in Ukraine, so my upbringing was radically different than it was in the United States. However, I'm still steeped in the culture of millennials, and even though I didn't experience the kind of upbringing that millennials had in the United States, I'm steeped in that culture, and I can kind of understand what the majority of like Americans experience growing up. But in Gen Z, it's been a little different of what masculinity and femininity represent. Not to a critical mass, I wouldn't say, but it had shifted a little bit from like the environments where the millennials were raised in. So the millennials were raised by baby boomers.
Right.
And it's funny. I was like, the situation happened several times where I see a man with gray hair and he's obviously of baby boomer age and he's like literally in a BMW, like raging in the street,
Oh my God.
like getting really upset that I'm there with my stroller trying to cross without running across the street. And it like makes me laugh because I'm like in my head, I'm like, okay, boomer. Okay,
Right.
boomer in a BMW. Like it's
Literally.
just such a cliche. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But that is the generation that raised the millennials. And right now, millennials, we have reached the age where we're not anymore the butt of the joke, where we are actually in positions to make a difference in the world and in positions to make things change. And I think that the millennial generation, especially for men, well, for women too, but different struggles, but men are caught in that like, I don't even fucking know what masculinity is. And I might be just completely blowing it out my ass right now, but That's just what it seems is like, for millennials and men in that age range, that we've just received so much confusing information about what masculinity is that it's just like a big fucking jamble, whatever that word is, of just try to even make it out what it even means. So I wanted to preface that, for millennials, it does represent something a little different. But for you, as someone from Gen Z, a little younger,
Yeah.
27, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
for a 27-year-old man, what is masculinity for you? And I want to hear a little more about what you talked about. Men have been programmed to suppress emotions.
Right.
So I want to hear about that piece too.
Yeah, I mean, you see the innocence of like little boys running around at the park, they're like happy, they're expressive, they're joyful, they're energetic, they're almost like untamed in a way, they have that sense of wildness, they're loving at the same time. They're wanting to show and share the things that they can do and that they can, I don't know, just like they find on the ground, like, Mom, look at this. And unfortunately, a lot of that gets crushed, A lot of that gets crushed by their parents that are working a 9 to 5 and that don't have the energy or the mental capacity to even, you know, entertain that kind of like dialogue because there's just that many generations apart. But also because they have different structures for how a relationship should work. And a lot of parents just think that they shouldn't be friends with their kids, unfortunately. And that really creates an awkward dynamic growing up. So the kid is taught, that I'm not supposed to be vulnerable. I'm not supposed to share my emotions. I'm not supposed to smile in front of my dad or my mom. Um, and with an exception for those parents that are out there doing that, majority of men, I feel like, go through that. And they're also taught women um, to look for men that exhibit the qualities that are a bit more cold, which, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of women nowadays that are like, I hate men, tend to like vie for that version of masculinity, the type that is domineering and controlling, confusing that as strength, um, as a version of masculinity. When I believe true and authentic masculinity is someone that isn't just able to provide for you, but someone that's able to share, to be open and vulnerable as well. Someone that is able to ground you, someone that's able to give you the freedom to be yourself while also helping and enabling you in whatever way he can. That doesn't necessarily mean he has to be a car mechanic, but it might just be that he picks up the groceries whenever he's on his way back home from work, or it might just mean that he's giving you a listening ear whenever you're down and you just need someone to be there. Um, it's not necessarily fixing you, um, which is what I feel like women almost expect, and how some men have been raised. So, and that's been a complex thing for me to navigate because I was very much raised in a similar way. Even though I was raised by a single mother, she taught me that I'm not supposed to show my emotions and got to be a man. I'm too sensitive. You know, you don't wear your heart on your sleeve. Um, and I just felt like my soul, was slowly dying um, as I grew older until like I went to UNT, got into college, and started to like be out on my own a little bit more, and I started to discover more of myself, and you know, that my ego was who ultimately I thought I was. It was the mind, the things that people told me that I was. It was my environment. Um, it was just a combination of all the stereotypes and labels and definitions I had slapped on myself to fulfill this role, to be able to have all the things, to be deemed worthy. And worthiness was never about having the label or the title. It was about knowing from within. It was about recognizing my soul and unmasking myself. And embracing my individuality, which was separate from a gender role altogether. So, which we all have traits of masculinity and femininity within all of us. And I thought that I just had to be in one.
Yeah. So that was going to be my next question. But first, I really want to take a moment to mirror to you, to acknowledge you, and to really celebrate you
Mm.
for how much farther ahead you are on a personal healing and
You're-
growth journey
Thank
than the majority of us. Like at your age, being 27 years old, that's the average age when the prefrontal cortex even starts coming online for men.
Yeah, that's true.
For women, it's 2 years younger, but I remember for me, 27 was a very difficult age because maybe my prefrontal cortex came on at 25, but it takes a moment to integrate it too, and to even like, because your whole brain restructures how it operates. So, I feel like for my generation, we're right now are like what the fuck, basically.
Yeah.
And it is so much harder in a sense too to start awakening into like what you said, the inner sense of worthiness that is not imposed from outside, that is not granted by the outside, that is not gifted by the outside. And, by the time we're in our mid, late 30s and in our 40s, it feels so much harder to let go of the identities that we've accumulated throughout the life. So I just really want to celebrate you. You are so young and you are so fucking wise.
Thank you.
Most men, and like, I'm sorry to overgeneralize, but
Yeah.
most men your age, I don't know what to talk to them about.
And I don't either, which is the sad part, They mostly follow the same model, just like talk about sports. All right, you like to fight? Cool. Let's beat each other up. I mean, that's cool to an extent, but like I think it's ironic that people that like actually like do fight also are some of the more like emotionally vulnerable people versus the people that are just trying to like be into like, I don't know, that Spartan sort of like Machiavellian mindset, that disposition.
Well, maybe that is a really good point. It's like, I talked to someone yesterday. I'm like recording too many podcasts in a row, but I had this conversation in one of the previous podcast episodes I recorded about how it's so important to have an outlet for rage, and that it y- all of us have rage and all of us have anger. But because men have been so programmed to suppress the rage and to suppress the anger, especially in the last 10 years,
Right.
and we can talk about that too, but I think that, the Me Too movement, it was super important.
Yeah.
It needed to happen.
Right.
And also, since the Me Too movement happened, so many men felt like they had to all of a sudden start suppressing all of their primal urges, that women didn't feel safe with them. And so that now men had to become these like domestic, tame little teddy bears that women always felt safe around. What you're saying is so beautiful. It's like the men who do have fist fights, they're actually the more vulnerable ones, and they're more connected
Yeah.
to what's inside of them
Yeah.
because they're like, I have this rage.
Yeah.
Do you want to go fight? Let's go fucking
Literally.
fight,
Literally.
And
Yeah.
it's like, it's an outlet.
Yeah, it is. It is.
If it's all consensual, if everybody's like, yeah, let's
Uh-huh.
go have a fucking fight, then maybe that's a great way to do it.
For sure. Yeah.
But I teach my 5-year-old that if you need to kick a pillow, go kick a pillow, go scream into a pillow. And sometimes she does, but it's like, it's unhealthy to carry it around. It's unhealthy to take it on to someone without consent. But if everybody is in consent about just, giving each other some black eyes, then why the fuck not?
I mean, exactly. I think it's just the testosterone, I mean, we had to let it out some way, somehow. But the way we've been taught to let it out has been against women predominantly. And a lot of men are too fragile, too weak, to manage their own egos because they've been crushed the moment they were introduced to the world. and they haven't adapted or ever learned that they were operating in from a place of ego rather than a place of the soul.
Mm.
Um, but I feel like that goes off into a tangent, and I think
Let's go there.
as far as like competition and like needing to express like emotions properly, anger is like typically tends to be like the main one that's only or generally expected to be accepted by members of society, and um that's the only one that we get to see whenever the man is at home, just frustration and anger, everything they do. And you'll see a lot of like unhappy man with their family like walking around. You're just like, oh, you can tell that guy just does not want to be with his family, you know. That's something Jasmine pointed out today. He's like, oh, we're at brunch. I was like, yeah, he kind of does. Like, he does not want to be there. Like, you could see about the energy from there. I think it just kind of like their kid, and I think it just kind of like shows in the parenting, um, how that affects the child and how that ultimately like affects the dynamic. Now, not to say not that every like couple is meant to be together, but also it's just highlighting the fact that, if you're upset, like you're the one that is supposed to like be the breadwinner. It it falls on your plate, all this pressure to like succeed and to like constantly like give and give, but never receive. Something we were kind of talking about a little bit before this podcast. It crumbles you, and you just become a shell of a person, which is a lot of things a lot of men suffer with. We were trying to just be that, and nothing else. But I think there's kind of like an awakening, like a mass awakening happening, at least in the States. I'm not sure across the world because there's different. Like we're one of the more like liberal countries as opposed to more like conservative places like South Korea or Japan, or even India. I haven't like studied them, but I've just seen like videos and like explanations from like people that actually live there, and they tell you like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. Like you can't hold hands in public, or you can't wear that color. You look too dark. There's still a lot of like um systemic racism and unfortunately like old conservative ideals that constrict the identity and your sense of self, which is intertwined with your expression of masculinity. Um, yeah. But all of that to say that I think this bleeds into where the problem is, right? Where women need a man that is capable of being emotional and of providing, and of being a safe place, offering structure. And my assumption is that women, because I'm not a woman, women need, um, well, let me rephrase that actually. Uh, Men,
Don't censor yourself, please.
well, I want to make sure I'm just like, you know, tackling this right. Men expect, I mean, like just like usually they expect a woman to like cook and clean for them, typically. But what I think a man might really need is someone to offer them space and peace, someone to help them grow and achieve some encouragement, and acknowledgement for all the struggle or grief that they may be carrying. And a lot of the time, men are frustrated because they feel like they have to carry so much. And the one time they express a need, it backfires. Like women will ask their husband or their partner, like, you never talk to me, you never say what you want or how you feel, and the man's like, that's because every time he does, he gets hurt by the same person that's supposed to be their peace. that is supposed to be curious about where their pain is coming from. They're just not expecting it to be necessarily something about them, but it's not all about them, you know. It's just that's how the woman or the feminine has like internalized that energy for themselves as, you know, their worth is based on how much they provide to a man, you know, when you're looking at it from a patriarchal standpoint. And whenever they feel like they're not fulfilling that role, then they feel attacked. They feel like, well, that's just messed up. Like, I do all of this for you. I do all of that for you.
Hello, gorgeous. Quick thing. I have an incredibly delicious free practice I would love to share with you. It helps you connect to your really deep, primal masculine power and also to the deepest level of self-love you could ever imagine. It is totally free. Link is below, or you can go to anyazelinska.com/primal power. That is ANYAZELINSKA/primal-power.
And you know, I've been hearing this lately, and I think I've heard it so many times, but sometimes it just takes like hearing something 10 times in order for it to start to sink in. But there are people who work with couples communications that have talked about how every complaint is a need not met. So the way we're expressing our complaints right now, that's where the problem is. Yeah, so when somebody is like, oh, you left all these dishes on the counter again, and I asked you so many times not to do that, and you just keep doing it, and you're so disrespectful to my wishes, and I'm just so fucking tired of having to say that to you
Right.
over and over again.
Yeah.
There's an unmet need that's underneath it, and sometimes it takes a little extra self-reflection. And like nobody can tell you what that unmet need is underneath it. Is that, you know, you have to do the digging for yourself and be like, which part am I actually upset about? What is the unmet need? Is the need that's being unmet right now is feeling like what I'm saying is heard and received? And am I just venting the dishes because of that? So I don't remember now where we even started with this, but
Yeah.
I think we were talking about just these expectations of each other and
Yeah. And the need to express whenever there's an issue with your partner.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see, there's something else that I really wanted to ask you about. Oh, you started talking about the mixing of the masculine and feminine energies. And so I'm a tantrika, I'm a tantra practitioner, and in the tantric philosophy, it's kind of like a given that there's polar expressions of every energy in the universe, and that the universe itself is oneness. However, the 3D manifest reality of us living on planet Earth, that is an inherently dualistic place. Everything has a flip side. You know, there's day, there's night, there's cold, there's hot, there's feminine and there's masculine.
Yeah.
Now, when our souls are with one source, there is no feminine or masculine.
Yeah.
But when we incarnate here in the 3D plane of existence, our souls choose how we're going to express. And that's not a constant either. I think that that's what we get so stuck on. And I think that that's why there's so much gender intolerance, is because people are like, well, you were born with a vagina. That means you're a woman forever.
Yeah.
It's like, can we just get over it? Because when we're one with the source, there is no gender.
Yeah.
The source is not gendered.
Well, and I had this conversation with like my hairstylist the other day, and it was like about a transgender woman doing sports, you know, like running track, and she was like, "That's a man, you know, like he shouldn't be doing that." And honestly, I don't know how I feel about that because like, you know, like they looked like a woman. they looked like a woman, and like that they obviously had like feminine qualities. I think I couldn't hear the TV, but that's what we were watching it on. Um, but there was this like element there of like them taking hormones, more estrogen, to be more feminine. What would your take be on like something like that?
Well, and I think in this context, we have to get to like, why the fuck does it matter to us so much
Yeah.
who wins in this running game? It's a game.
Yeah.
It's a game. Like, can we just get the fuck over, which country wins? It's like, the country borders, they were won by wars that we're trying to like get over as a humanity right now. So can we just stop getting so attached to like this pride to like, how fast we can run? Like, does it even fucking matter? When we're at each other's throats
Yeah.
about shit that makes us human and shit that actually matters, and it makes us feel terrible to be having these like really disconnected moments of like we forgot what intimacy is as a species. We have so little intimacy. We have intimacy so confused with something that's completely different. And then we're like having these conversations about, well, if this country lets a transgender person win that race, then it means that this country receives fewer medals than they should. And like,
Yeah.
let's just get really pissed off about it.
For sure. Yeah, I think people
Yeah.
kind of twist a narrative into like if they can do it, then couldn't anybody do that? That just like completely distorts how it all works. And I guess that may be like coming from a fear that like uh my hairstylist is a woman. Maybe she was like kind of like fearful that this is something else that men are taking away from us, but from a like heteronormative lens instead of like an inclusivity understanding of like, well, they're transitioning to as a woman, not because they just want to win a women's sports. So
Yeah, they just want to be seen for who they are,
right. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I feel like it's a big deep topic that
trigger.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I want to hear from you about, because I know that you've mentioned this before when we were having a fire in my
Yeah.
backyard at my old house, how for you gender is perceived a little differently than
Yeah.
it is for older generations, and that you
Yeah.
are more in touch with your femininity than my generation and beyond, because we were programmed, you're a woman, this is what a woman does. You're a man, that's what a man does. And you're like, you cannot cross that line. And, my nephew loved dressing up in my mom's clothes, and he got in a lot of trouble about that from my brother and from my dad. And like, it was so not okay with them that my nephew would be wearing women's clothes. And that made me so sad. And, well, it was also not my place to, he was not my child.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that we did grow up with such rigid gender identities. And what you said just landed with me in such a fresh way. Like, oh shit. Like the younger generations, they are probably seeing it very differently, and they might be experiencing a little more flexibility in how they express their gender.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how is that for you?
For me, I mean, I identify as he, him. I'm not necessarily or have explored like gender fluidity. But I also have seen it in other people that kind of have like androgynous features. It's hard to put them inside of a box. I think people often conflate gender with sex, and that you can't have both. You can't have a penis and then appear to be a woman and vice versa. Um, but I think that's what gender is. It's kind of like looking at race versus ethnicity, right? Like it describes our appearance, and then it goes into, okay, these are the roots of our DNA. So, which um, which is why um, I think transsexual is often what it's hard to say transgender. Transgender usually refers to transsexual as well, because you are changing your gender, your sex, to also look more like the opposite sex, but it gets fixated on the gender part, you know. But I think that's all it is. It's just the appearance of like how we want to be seen, and some days we might want to look more feminine, and some days we might want to look more masculine. And the ways I express that are like either like more like revealing clothing, like even a little bit today, I guess. Like I got my
Yeah. I love it. I noticed the cleavage. I was like, I'm all about the cleavage.
but I have my like sharp dress pants on at the same time.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I usually try to go for a nice little mix. Yeah.
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 Yeah, so I think this might be something really helpful for people who are watching us, for those who self-identify as heterosexual men, to hear this conversation about what is it like to be a very masculine man? Because I do see you as a very masculine man. Your voice is very low, your shoulders are broad. You have that masculine expression. You're like bulky. But at the same time, you are in touch with your femininity. You're not trying to be feminine. You're not trying to, like, go against your masculinity.
Right.
What I see is that you're a person who is so grounded in your masculinity that there's nothing wrong with you to be in touch with your femininity.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear a little more about that. Like, how does you being in touch with your femininity, how does that express for you? How does
Yeah.
that feel internally for you?
Well, because often, thank you for saying that, because that's very validating to hear. Because a lot of people have actually said the opposite, where I seem more feminine, because I guess I've been able to articulate my emotions more clearly, or because I enjoy creating art, or because I am sensitive to people's emotions and mood swings and the air of the environment. So,
Well, that's an interesting take on it. So people are taking your emotional expression and making it mean that you're more feminine.
right, exactly. And that's also a distortion of what masculinity is. But I think when it comes to femininity, um, I have already, like, always, like, naturally embodied that, because as a child, I was always very intuitive and enjoyed l- like expressing myself through art, to draw and like copy all the cartoons. And when we talk about art, right, what is the definition of art? You know, um, it's not just femininity necessarily, but it is expression. It is emotion, which is often seen as a feminine trait, and the ability to describe and to almost intellectualize, but more like um, share the or invoke the emotion that that piece um, invoked in you into another person. Um, and there's something empathetic about that. And I've always felt like I was very like deeply empathetic, and I can never shut that part off, even if I wanted to. That's just something I couldn't do.
Yeah.
I think I had moments where I was just like, there's something wrong with me. I am feeling too much. I'm too sensitive, and I wanted to like shut that part up, like shut down my feelings. And there was a time period where I was very depressed, just around people that I cared and loved about, but I felt like I couldn't show that I cared and loved them, because that was weakness. And with that, I un- kind of unwinded a lot of uh, my own insecurities in being perceived as more feminine or a woman, um, simply because there were parts of me that didn't fit into the mold of the stereotype black man that's meant to be a stoic provider and live as a rock and nothing more or less. So, and challenging that norm has been been hell, but it's also been liberating because I had to fight for my own autonomy. And in that, I also felt like I was learning how to validate myself and my own emotions, even though there were many, many other people that were saying that it was wrong. But I didn't give a fuck at some point. It's like, you know what? No, I mean, you're wrong, and I'm right to feel how I feel. And at the time, I was learning a lot about tarot when I was going through like this realization. I had like went to UNT for a while, on this journey of self discovery, kind of just like thinking I knew everything about the world. I was 18 and like met a bunch of people that kind of like, I don't know, just like challenged the way that I thought about life and brought me out of the kind of colonial, like, you need to work hard, strap yourself up by your bootstraps mindset to like, no, actually, there are people that are actually like suffering and, live in a world that is like disadvantaged based off of this like environment they were raised in. And I'm thinking I was just pure and innocent. And I was like, no, maybe I've been infected too. And discovering a lot of like relationship theory, wondering why like I didn't feel love, even though love was technically right around me from my mother and my family. Um, I felt like I still had to cultivate that from within myself, but it happened in so many different weird ways. I feel only now that I'm at this level of comfort because of a lot of the people I've met along the way that accepted me as I learned how to accept myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is so beautifully said. And I do want to ask you, as a person of color, to any people of color who are listening to this podcast right now,
Yeah.
if you could maybe speak directly to them and what helped you as a person of color to confront that extra layer of conditioning that you received as a person whose ancestors have lived through systemic oppression. And I mean, the systemic oppression still continues. It's not like it's over. And what is that extra layer that you had to work on within yourself and you had to come face to face within yourself? Maybe it was something very uncomfortable, but that extra layer of where your masculinity was not living up to its beautiful potential and where
Yeah.
it was being hindered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I never really thought about that before.
Hmm.
Um, if I had to give a person of color advice for how to overcome systemic oppression, um, it would be to explore uh, intersectionality. I think that was kind of what opened the door for me to understanding that I'm not just a one-dimensional being, but that there are a lot of factors that create a sense of self, right? From a macro, micro, and meso level. Um, there's class, there's race, there's gender, there's sexuality. Sorry about that. And um, all of that creates a sense of identity. And when you put that all into perspective, you begin to think about not just, oh, this is just who I am. You think about, no, this is who I was shaped to be. Who who am I really? Who is the thinker behind the thoughts? And I implore anyone that's really trying to deep dive into their psyche to also look into Carl Jung, to explore the shadow, to look at your shadow self and begin to question where those triggers are coming from. Why does it scare you to be different from the crowd? Why does it trigger you, make you anxious to be seen a certain way by other people that are supposed to love you? Love isn't supposed to feel like a backhand. And you wouldn't know that unless you've actually been embraced before. Um, if you have those kind of like questions, yeah, do that. You're meant to uncover something there that you've been hiding inside of your body. It's it's out of your awareness and waiting to come up. And you may be just suppressing those feelings because you're not ready to digest or metabolize all of that. So learning about what it is first helps for you to be prepared for that almost emotional regurgitation of all the shit you've been swallowing for the last couple decades, um, that aren't you, but you've identified as yourself.
Yeah. And a lot of the work that I do with my clients, with my coaching clients, it's very Jungian. Like we do shadow work. It's not shadow work every single session because I think also it's so important to recognize when our nervous systems are like, and fuck that today. I think that a lot of us have the propensity to re-traumatize ourselves by thinking that we need to dive off of deep end all the time, especially those of us who
Yeah.
are generally speaking intense people, speaking about myself, is that sometimes intensity is like associated with something good. And when there's a lack of intensity, it's perceived as something that's like not even there. So most of the work that I do with my clients, it's very Jungian. It's very much facing your shadow. But you said it really beautifully. And to me, why shadow work has been so important is because those demons that are hiding inside of us, they're nobody else's demons.
Right.
Who they are all the versions of ourselves that were exiled. I have no other word for this right now, but those are our inner children. Uh, there's a version of you who was told, shut up, you're being too much right now. I'm just so fucking tired of you running around and screaming. And in that moment, that child froze in and made a decision. I'm not going to do this again, or I'm going to keep getting in trouble. And then that becomes a demon. And I know that it seems so simple, but like that's the actual demon. And we're so afraid of all those demons inside of us. And we think that if we come face to face with them, that the world is going to completely fall apart and we're going to never come back from it. And for some of us, it actually might be true because some of us have experienced a lot of trauma. And that's why it's really important to have a guide. And sometimes a guide is a coach, and sometimes a guide is a friend who's been through the same thing. Sometimes a guide can be a lover, even though it's not the lover's responsibility to heal us.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important not to do it alone. And what I'm discovering for myself, it's like the deeper I dive, the more aliveness I can uncover. And also, it's like at first when we start doing the shadow work, at first it's like very obvious. It's like, okay, this is that version of me that's like this old. And then the more of those layers we peel off, the more it becomes just amorphous. It's like all of a sudden I'm tapping into all of this shame. And I have no idea where this shame is coming from. But there's like an ocean of shame. And the only thing I can do right now in this moment is just sit with it. This shame has no color, it has no shape, it has no personality, it has no age. It's just an ocean of shame. And I could run away from it and I could go grab my phone and be scrolling instead. Or I'm going to sit here and just be with it and feel it. And then it passes.
Yeah.
And then I was really fucking uncomfortable, maybe for 15 minutes, maybe for an hour, maybe for 2 hours. But if I let myself feel it, and now it has passed, and it might come back in a day or two, it might come back in a month. But it's like, I don't think we should be so terrified of looking down in our depth and our darkness, because it's like, it's us down there.
Yeah.
There's not, our abusers aren't in there.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah. I mean, they aren't, but maybe there's a version of like that, toxic person. I say toxic, but like maybe it's just like a a voice of someone that used to nag you a lot, telling you like, oh, if you do that, you'll look like an idiot. Or if you ask that person, what you think about your outfit, then they're going to make fun of you, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it is sad,
Hmm.
but it is mostly the war we're having with I guess, our own demons. Yeah, like you said.
Yeah, and I was so fortunate, and I still am so fortunate. I have an incredible sisterhood and siblinghood of just incredible beings, and I've been walking a path of a priestess for a year and a half, and I have that siblinghood of priestesses and priestesses alongside me, and we're helping each other through shadow work because we have the mutual understanding of how to navigate that. And I am so fortunate, and I am where I am today because I have done so much healing and so much shadow work. But I would love to hear from you without having a sisterhood, siblinghood like I did that walked me through it, and teachers and mentors. How did you navigate it?
Yeah, I honestly felt like I did a lot of it alone, um, which taught me a lot about self-reliance and having integrity, even if what I thought was right was against what someone else thought was right. Um, it taught me how to recognize my own truth doing it alone for a while. Sometimes we do have to go through those periods of isolation because whenever we try to find that authentic voice, and we search for reason, we search for self, um, we lose the people around us that we thought were our friends that really valued us or cared about us for who we really were. But in that time period, it was probably right after I had left UNT. I was taking a gap year just to focus on what I really wanted to do with my life. Um, that I discovered tarot, and that was kind of my guidance that I've got through that. Even though I was alone in my journey, I still had my virtual tarot reader, just like, actually, you're on the right path right now. Like you're going through all this shit, but that's because you're going through a spiritual awakening. I was like, oh shit, I am. What even is that? And that led me down the rabbit hole of Alan Watts, who helped me discover what my ego was and how I was getting my own way. That helped me go down the rabbit hole of Carl Jung and discovering the shadow, right? What is the shadow? I've heard people ask, like, what is that? Just the black space that's behind you whenever you're facing? No, I mean, it's the id, right? Underneath the iceberg. If you're looking at there, I mean, there are some people that don't know about it, but there's the id, there's the ego, and there's a super ego. The ego is a surface level. The super ego is what you try to present to the world. The id is your subconscious, your desires, your innate like beastly motivations, that you don't see or recognize. And that's the shadow work, learning how to feel and process that and discovering what subconsciously is controlling your mind, um, what is influencing those factors and behaviors that you think you are operating with your thoughts, but in actuality is completely organized by the system that you were born into. And now you're having to rewire all of that. And that's why shadow work can take years, you know?
Oh, and it does. I don't
Yeah.
I don't think you can like blaze through it.
Oh, yeah, no.
Every layer is a level of initiation, and every initiation has to build upon the initiation that you've already completed, and sometimes they loop on each other. And something that I was working on even today, I was like, I've been here already. Why the fuck am I here again? But it's like
Yeah.
a new layer of an initiation opened up, and it's just a human experience. I think, and I talked about this with Josh in my first episode too, is that there is such a desire to transcend the human experience.
Yeah.
And, you and I are very spiritual, esoteric folks. So, to anyone else out there who's very esoteric, there's so much talk right now about, like, oh, we're ascending into 5D. And there's something about it that is just so exciting to us, right? Like, oh, we're going to leave all of the suffering behind. We're going to say fuck you to all of this. And now we're going to live on a cloud and everything is going to be perfect. And it's just, it's all going to be that way. And what I think is that we are, by doing that, we are causing so much suffering to ourselves because we are negating the divinity of a human experience. And we didn't incarnate here on planet Earth as some sort of punishment.
Right.
We turned it into hell by running away from the divinity of this experience, by trying to run away from everything that is dark, from everything that is bad, from everything that is painful, from everything that we just don't want to look at. We want to be like, la, 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 la. When are we ascending? Have we ascended yet? And I think that what we're being taught right now is like, okay, yes, new planes of existence are opening up to us. Like we are able right now to perceive, like I'm sure many of you have heard about the veil getting thinner. Like the veil is getting thinner, so we are able to perceive the multidimensionality of the universe.
Yeah.
And we have to ground
Mm.
and root into the earth
Yeah.
like nobody's business right now. Because one and the other, they cannot be separate. It's like the more you are trying to get into higher planes of existence and speak to God and ascend some of your trauma and break generational cycles, the more you have to root into the earth, the more you have to be present with everything that is going on, the more you have to stop ignoring everything that's going on around you and being like, la la la, I can't see, I can't hear anything, I'm just gonna pretend that it doesn't exist.
Oh yeah.
And that totally 100% means feeling a deeper intensity of pain, feeling a deeper intensity of heartbreak, feeling a deeper intensity of fear, feeling a deeper intensity of every negative emotion that we can imagine, and choosing not to suffer, because suffering is a choice. And you can feel a heartbreak and not suffer at the same time. And I think that that is the part that we've been very confused about. And it's easier said than done.
For
I
sure.
know that.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's like we need to do our shadow work. And that is what helps us connect down into our foundation again. And that foundation is that, yes, the earth experience is inherently painful in so many ways. But it is, some of the most blissful moments I felt were actually when we were working in the grocery store together. There's this one moment that sticks out to me. I was just like, I was in a period of my life when I thought I was going to die. Like my will to live was so, so low. And I was like on the edge of danger territory with suicidal thoughts. And I'm walking through the receiving area where it's like this gray storage boxes everywhere, like messy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I think I put the music into my ears, and all of a sudden, it's just like I got hit by such a wave of bliss
Hmm.
because the music in my ears was just so creative and so expressive. And that music came from a full spectrum of emotions. Like the music wasn't meant to be like, everything is butterflies and rainbows.
Oh my
It was like,
God.
it was like a song that just,
It's a cathartic.
it just included the whole range of emotions. It was like really dark and really bright at the same time. And I got hit by this wave of bliss of like, we are so gorgeous as a human species. We are so gorgeous in our humanity because in the deepest darkness, we can create the most incredible art. And that art is what will get us through all of this. And I remember, like, in that moment, feeling suicidal on one hand, and on the other hand, like, being hit with this, like, field of bliss, being like, I fucking love Earth. I think I want to incarnate as human again, you know? When so many of us are posting memes of like, hey, aliens, please take me off this hellhole, you know? Like,
Right.
no, bitch, you chose it. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think
Get
about that, sometimes just like the soul contract that I may have signed before deciding to come
Oh,
to
you
the Earth
totally
School.
did.
Just like choosing like the life. Yeah, my first 27 years are going to be hell. But you know
Yeah.
what? The last, half of it is going to be great.
Yeah. You know, the thought that I've had, I'm like, the fucking ego my soul had to think that I can get through all of this shit.
For real.
Like, and then I'm like,
Literally.
wait, my soul doesn't have an ego. So my soul knew that I could get through all of this.
Right, that is true.
So can I figure out a way how to vibe with it? Because
Yeah.
it's not like my soul was like, I can do this.
Literally, but it makes you not want to come back.
know?
It's just like, do I want to do that again? But having a human experience is definitely a gift, nonetheless. Like at some point I mean, even if you are in the like higher realm, helping people from above, guiding and, you know, sending signals to whoever you're protecting on the planet, I think there's a point where you're like, yeah, I think I'm ready to actually be a part of this movement. So, and I think that's what we're trying to do right now, bring back balance to humanity with the war with the masculine and feminine energy, which unfortunately does start with a lot of inner work. It's not just about the way you need to approach a woman. It's not that. No, that's surface level. You're barely scratching the surface. Actually, you have to go deep, and unless you're willing to get a little dirty with uncovering all of the things that you've been through, your own trauma, you might think I don't have trauma. That's a lie. Everybody has trauma. You're just unwilling to see it and to look at it, and you'd rather be blind to your own ignorance. And with love, you have to be able to see when your life is inhibited by your own pain. That if you have a cut on your arm and you're going out trying to live life, um, and you're complaining about how the wind is getting in it, water got in it, and you refuse to acknowledge that it hurts, then that is on you. You choose to suffer. But you have to acknowledge where that pain is coming from, frustration emotionally, in order to heal that wound. And you can then, once you understand it, find the band-aid for it, whether that might be soothing, physical touch from a friend or a lover, or whether that might be getting a counselor, going to therapy, whether that might be tapping into divination, maybe all of the above, right? Sitting there, like you were saying, and feeling your feelings. It's all of that so that when the wellspring of emotion comes up and you realize that you're more than just a single self on this planet, but that you're connected to everybody, you're part of the collective consciousness, that we're all one, that you begin to understand this sense of the Greek word. Is it compatas or philia? I can't remember it right now, but that sense of love, that's universal, and you can't plug it back up. Once you get there, you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to start landing this plane because we have talked for almost 2 hours
No,
now. So
I didn't even realize we've been going for that long.
yeah. I know this has been such an interesting conversation. I'm like, do we have to land this plane or can we just keep doing it? But I do want to bring up this topic again of receiving. And, I specifically want to talk about it in the masculine context because I will share my experience of I have a really fucking hard time receiving. And, maybe that's also a part of a million reasons why my marriage failed, quote unquote, because everything is copacetic. That's my new favorite word. It had to happen that way for all the parties involved to learn some very important lessons. And I have a really, really hard time receiving. And it is the patterning that I received from my mother. My mother is like always grinding, always giving, giving, giving. She is over giving. She is forcing her help on others without consent. Even when people are telling, I don't want your help, she's still like, no, because I'm supposed to give.
Right.
And I received that pattern from her, and I've done my work to like try to unwind that and be like, no, I'm not going to be like my mother. But also, I was in a very masculine kind of space for almost the entirety of my life. Only recently have I really started to be like, okay, how can I arrive into my feminine? Like, I actually want to choose to be in my feminine. I don't even know what that means, in the healthy kind of expressed feminine, because I think that another way, and this is like a whole other tangent, but like another way that femininity expresses itself in a very toxic way is manipulation by sex, manipulation by attraction. So many of us women have been programmed to see femininity only from that, to be like, oh, hi, can you like fix this thing for me, and
Yeah.
but what does healthy femininity look like? What does it look like to be embodied in my human feminine experience? And for me, it does come down to receiving too, and to softening to receive. And I've been like grinding out so hard that I have no idea how to receive. And that is something that I'm like, I want this initiation. Like somebody, like universe, please teach me how to receive. I don't know. And
Yeah.
as I say that, I'm like, oh, usually those are very hard lessons. And I don't
Yeah.
I don't know if I want this. Maybe I'll learn it on my own. I take it back. I take it back. I'll do it on my own. But I'm also really curious to hear about it, what your thoughts are. Is that something that's inherently difficult for the masculine to know how to receive?
Yeah.
Or is it just like a human experience? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, in particular with like my relationship with Jasmine, which we've been together for 3 years, like navigating her like paying for dates and like driving and like her just taking us out in general has been mind blowing because I always had thought that the man was supposed to do all of that. And uh that taught me a lot already, just like, oh, well, I guess we are just like operating in gender norms. We don't have to do that. And there are even times today where she'll offer to like pay, and I'm just like, no, no, I feel guilty if you do. You already do so much for me, and I just want to offer that in return. But at the same time, that's what I'm trying to grip with, just like, or I'd rather to loosen the grip with, because it's like if she really wants to, I shouldn't confuse that as no, like she doesn't want to, she actually wants to help. She's not just saying that to be nice. And I had to have those difficult conversations with her as well. Like, hey, are you sure you actually can afford this? Like I don't mind. It's like, no, no, please, like let me do this for you. I care and I love you and I want to show that as well. You know, and I guess that's part of like an element of my masculinity that I've been trying to kind of shed away, like with a knife carving through wood, sort of feel, because I know it's still like a tender area to like let her do that. Um, but it's also taught me that I can't ever understand what love feels like unless I learn how to accept that, instead of push it away and then become resentful that, hey, I don't feel loved in this relationship, you know, when this whole time I've been pushing away all the little bids for connection she's been offering. in any relationship, really, you know?
And you said something really beautiful. You said about guilt, the guilt we feel when somebody gives something to us.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a very important note to self to be like, okay, why am I feeling guilty? And I don't even know if that even matters because sometimes I'm like, well, do I need to know why? Or can I just work on releasing it? But if you were to look a little deeper, do you know what feels so guilty about receiving?
And I think the thing is, I know why. It's because of the way I've been conditioned by society to, be a man and feeling like I'm always being tested to stay in that role. Um, but the actual process of disengaging from the trigger is still difficult because it takes a conscious effort to rewire my neurons and say yes, to lean into yes instead of no. Um, just because I'm afraid that if I say yes, that it might actually hurt them. I'm afraid of hurting someone the way that I was hurt, just by them giving as much as I might be. I'd rather bear the pain than you in a sort of way, which is a sort of like martyr like way of looking at relationships, but that's how men are often expected to be. So dropping that shield has been been difficult. Learning how to be more vulnerable uh, and less controlling by allowing her to take the lead um, has taught me how to receive and lean more into my femininity as well. Um, and even enjoy it. It's like, oh wow, this is nice,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so beautifully said. And what came to me as you were saying that is the importance of any relationship to be this creative dance of there will be times when this is how it'll manifest, and there will be times when we will need to scratch that old system and we'll need to
Yeah.
create something completely
Oh yeah.
new
Oh yeah.
instead of like stuffing ourselves into these box of this is how it always should be, these are my roles and responsibilities and these are yours, and instead flowing with it and being like, okay, well, in this moment this is your love language. Can I receive it? Or am I going to be all in my head about, oh, well, I should be taking care of this instead of you?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's something that just happened recently on Valentine's Day. Like I bought her like so many gifts. I was like, "Well, I thought you like wanted all these gifts." She's like, "I didn't really want like you said your love language was gift giving. You're like gifts, And she was like, "Well, that doesn't mean having more gifts, It's just about the thought behind the gift." I was like, "Oh, well, I guess that makes sense. I didn't have to blow like $300 for all of that." But which is also funny because whenever like early in our relationship, I wanted to spend more quality time together, but she thought that that meant, spending hours upon hours in a day with each other. I was like, I don't want to just constantly be doing things. I actually just I'm fine with just like cuddle in bed for a while. That's quality to me. Going for a walk together, having just intimate conversation, that's quality time to me. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, all right, we're going to Mars and we'll have to pack up all of our gear. You know what I mean? No, yeah, that's something that's been difficult. Navigating our love languages and how we express our needs with each other properly. Um, that's where a lot of the miscommunication can happen and a lot of resentment, therefore, can build. So, yeah.
Mm. Okay, so I have one last question.
Mm,
We were talking about the word provider and how there's so much pressure on the masculine to be the provider, and how now in the world where women are really fighting for equality and where all of that is getting so confused and just so mixed, and also talking about how the masculine energy has a difficult time receiving, and how much work it is, and also how much joy it can bring to be like, oh, okay, she's going to pay for brunch today.
Yeah.
And in that context, when, let's say, your partner, your woman, just really wants to take care of things financially because it makes her feel good, because it makes her feel good that she is capable as a woman. And when you don't feel like you're providing financially for her, what are some of the ways to help you feel like you're still providing? What is it that masculine energy can pivot to provide if it's not money?
Yeah. Some of the things I mentioned earlier, like driving for her, or being like a ear for her to listen to or bounce ideas off of. Um, I guess like if I'm not like giving her money, um, I like to like ask her what she needs right now. Like sometimes I just be direct with her. Maybe she'll want like a neck massage, or maybe she even wants a little space, and I offer that as well. Um, and I just never know, exactly what it is until I get a complete full answer from her. So I typically just check in and ask before assuming what I'm trying to give is what she needs, because I can often go the other way. But generally, it's a combination of all those things, and generally she is very open to it. So yeah,
That is so fucking beautiful, just what you said there. Like providing what she needs, and sometimes that is space.
yeah,
And in the world where we've been conditioned, then when somebody's asking for space, they're really mad at us or unhappy with us, or
yeah,
they experience some kind of a negative emotion towards us.
yeah,
You said it's like a nail on the head. I provide what she needs, and sometimes it's space. That is so beautiful.
yeah.
Wow. And on that note, let's land this plane. All
Yeah,
right.
here we go.
I know there's so many topics that we still wanted to cover and we didn't get a chance to cover.
Right,
And
right.
maybe you'll just have to come back for
Oh,
another
100%.
episode.
I would love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So if anybody really enjoyed this, and if you want to hear more about Nick's journey, I would love to have you back.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, if you could please tell the viewers
Yeah.
what your offerings are, how they can find you, how they can work with you.
Yeah, I'd love
Yeah.
to. So, I do videography, and I also do tarot readings. So if anyone's interested in that, feel free to contact me at nicholasrichardson7@gmail.com. It's my whole government name, man. Or if you want a tarot reading, you could also reach out to me through TikTok. I don't use it as often, but I'll try and get back to you. And I generally focus on love readings, but also do career and life purpose. And I'm well known for helping people like find a sense of clarity after the reading is over. So yeah, reach out to me if that's something you're curious about. But otherwise, follow me on Instagram at SolarNix, SolarNix, all one word. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll put all these links in the notes. So somewhere down below, all of these links are going to be there. And hearing you talk about tarot too, I was like, well, that's such a beautiful way to connect to the feminine within. It's that intuition. It's trusting that,
Right.
no, this is not making any fucking sense in the logical, rational way
Right.
that we've been
Right.
conditioned that we, only that which we can see and touch is true. So that is such a beautiful way to connect to the inner intuition, inner knowing.
Yeah, unfortunately, in our patriarchal society, we've been taught to suppress that feminine intuition in the first place. It's not necessarily even a feminine feature, it's just intuition, has been sought to be suppressed because you're not allowed to think for yourself. You're supposed to think the way that we tell you to think, and otherwise, you are going to hell.
Yeah.
It's like this fear is fabricated so that you're meant to live in an illusion of a reality. And I know we're about to end off here, but just last thing, like it is beautiful to be able to actually tap into your reality and see the magic in that every day simply by pulling playing cards, because that's what they are. That's what tarot is. They're playing cards. They all are correlated with the queen, the king, the suits, the wands and the cups. They're all there.
Yeah, and I think that people are so confused about what tarot is, and I definitely was. Like, people think that tarot is going to be like, you're going to die in 3 years, and your sister's going to steal all your money, and like, none of that shit.
No.
The only thing tarot can tell you is what is
Right.
presently
Yeah.
and what you need to pay attention to.
Right.
So it's always an invitation to go inward. It's never external. It's never like, oh, this person is going to come and do something to you. Like, it's always an invitation to be like, where are you not paying attention? Where are you checked out? Have you been chasing the paycheck? Have you been chasing that brand new
Right.
car instead of focusing on your inner worth and on
Right.
your inner value? Or, have you been listening to too much negativity and
Right.
neglecting the innocence inside of
Oh,
you?
yeah.
It's always that guidance to go deep within.
Yeah, and the cards will tell you when you're going down that path. They will tell you, hey, if you keep this up, yeah, you're gonna have a tower moment. You're gonna have the foundation stripped out from underneath you, and you're like, oh shit, maybe I should have like paid attention to what my feelings were trying to tell me this whole time, instead of trying to avoid the inevitable doom that I was going to face in this path if I had just confronted my shadow earlier.
Yeah.
So that's what tarot does.
And tarot are brutal too.
Yeah.
There are months where it sits on my altar and I don't touch the deck. I'm like, I'm not in the mood for y'all. I'm just not in the mood for y'all. I know you're gonna deal some very hard truths for me to look at, and I'm just not in the mood for that. No, thank you.
Yeah, I feel that.
Right now in this moment, I feel like, I haven't steeped enough in my own shit. I'm gonna go steep in my own shit just a little longer, and then I'll come to you, and then you can tell me, I told you so.
Exactly.
Oh, Nicholas, thank you
Mm.
so much for being
Yeah,
here.
it
This
was
was so
fun.
amazing, so just heartfelt. It is
Yeah.
so good to get to sit down and have this conversation with you,
Good.
because I feel like for the last 8 million times that we've interacted, it was like in
Yeah.
passing, like,
Right.
oh, you're coming into this party, but I'm just leaving because my daughter
Literally.
needs to go to bed, So,
Right.
this has been such a treat to have this conversation with
Yeah.
you. So thank
Agreed.
you. I
Yeah, thank you
value you
too.
in my life so much, and I
Oh.
really do see you as a brother.
Aw,
So,
yeah.
mm,
This is sweet.
yeah.
I need to give you a hug, but these microphones are in the way.
Okay, let's do that. I love you, brother.
I love you too, man. Mm.
All right, bye-bye, y'all.
You made it. Thank you so much for being here. Please hit subscribe, and I would love it if you leave a comment so that other people can find this work and these beautiful, real conversations. I would also really love to hear from you what you would love to know more about in the upcoming episodes. With so much love and gratitude, I will see you next time. Dear lion-hearted light warrior.